Hello, fellow human! Welcome back to another Jank Joe r slash malicious compliance. We have 6 stories in total for you guys today. The first story is posted by you slash Poshbo with the title of Landlord Advertises All of Our Company's Equipment for Sale to Our Competitors. Best follow our eviction to the letter. I work for a leisure company. Think soft play, indoor soccer, laser tag. Can't be specific. Prior to the lockdown, managers and the big bosses were negotiating the renewal on the lease on one of our parks. Things were going mostly smoothly, however the landlords were difficult to contact. Then 2020's crap hit the fan. All of our sites were closed and everything was thrown into a mess. Negotiations began to slip down the priority list. Nobody thought the landlord would push an eviction for an expired lease during this period, especially with it still getting rent despite the site's closure and the closures of every business and restaurant in the immediate area. We were wrong. A few days ago, we received a letter saying we had 7 days to leave the premises and take everything with us. We are reminded that anything left in the building after 7 days will become the landlord's property. That line is very important. Now, a lot of construction goes into installing our equipment into a new building, which makes emptying one even harder. At a lockdown with no staff and most business shut, it meant that saving much of our assets would prove to be extremely difficult. To lose a profitable site and all of its assets is definitely a blow to our company. But here's where it gets worse. A few days into our 7 days eviction, we find out that landlord has been advertising our park to our competitors. But he isn't offering just a building, he's offering all of our stuff pre-installed. Ready to go, just needs a rebranding. The landlord has evicted us from the property in an attempt to increase rent and make a solid profit from our equipment installed because he thinks we won't be able to empty the park. We were furious. And this is where the malicious compliance came in. We were told we had 7 days to move everything we owned out of the property. So that's what we did. Local businesses from all around offered us free space to store our things. A few people came back out of a lockdown and they are spent the rest of the week removing, selling, or destroying everything that was related to us. We didn't even leave light fittings. In every other site vacation we've seen, we always ended up leaving thousands of dollars worth of disco lights in the ceiling because they are too hard to get. We leave most of the constructions in, as well as things like bars and kitchens that all stay intact, recognizable as they once were, but not this building. We ripped the floor we installed, tore down the walls that were not part of the original structure, wooden walls to divide up the space, ripped apart our manager's offices, and removed all artworks and lockers. The landlord now has every new deal he has been making dead in the water, a large renovation bill to install new flooring, etc. Or a company willing to do it all by themselves like we were. Lockdown has been extended another 4 weeks, so he has at least another 4 weeks without rent we were paying and won't have any potential buyers. Silver lining, the assets got off the sites, fridges, TVs, equipment, food, tables, have all been sold, and lack of the rent and additional income has helped the business and paid the staff wages. TLDR, landlord gave us 7 days to vacate our leisure business from the building. He thinks we can't empty the business during lockdown and proceeds to advertise our equipment for sale to our competition. We sell everything in 7 days and destroy the rest. Enjoy no rent and to the loss of your potential buyers. Well, it's amazing how they managed to do all of those tasks in just a week. I guess furiousness really motivate people. On to the second story written by you/balloon understudy. My neighbors want to call professional to mark their property line. My parents agreed. This was a long time ago, but I remember it clearly. We moved into a community with tight space in between our houses and our neighbors, and we didn't like them being able to see into our kitchen. We put up a bunch of plants costing thousands, but my parents thought it would be worth it. A week later, my parents awoke to the plants completely chopped down. My father was furious and marched down to our neighbor's house. He told my father the plants were on his property line, therefore he had total right to take them down. He warned that if anything were to go onto his property again, he would report us to the authorities immediately. Later that day, my father called the company that put in the plants with the guarantee we could have them replanted next week for no charge. We made sure that there were no way it was our neighbor's property. However, a few days later, we caught him chopping them down at 2 a.m. We called the police upon obstruction of property, and after a chat with my neighbor, he decided to call a professional and mark his property line. My father agreed. A few days later, I got home to find orange tape in my neighbor's yard. Apparently, his fence was 11 feet over our property line. We watched as he took down his fence, completely furious. Within the next months, we were enjoying our new space and privacy in our backyard, and my neighbor ended up losing 1/4 of his backyard. My neighbors ended up having to pay almost 10K for the destruction of our property and got to plant our plants again. TLDR, my neighbor chopped down our plants because he claimed we were on his property. After calling a professional, he lost 11 feet of his backyard and had to pay for destruction of property, and we got to keep our plants. Well, that surveyor deserved a tip definitely for providing that orange banner of victory. On to the third story shared by you/Princess G66. I don't care if he's dead, put him on the phone. My father died on Father's Day 2012. He was divorced and living alone, and I'm an only child. So that means that I had to wrap up all his affairs. This story centers around us trying to get his utilities cancelled. I called in to see what we had to do to get them cancelled. The lady I spoke with on the phone said to send his certified death certificate. I sent in the certified copy of his death certificate the next day. The next month got another bill. I called again and the new woman answered. She said that because I wasn't on the account, that she had to speak with the account holder. I informed her that the account holder was dead, but she wouldn't budge. I had to make an appointment with the supervisor so she could speak to him herself in person. I showed up at the board of the public utilities with another death certificate and his ashes in the clear bag that they returned his remains in. I plopped them down onto the center of the desk and said when she talked to him to tell him that I love him for me. The woman went pale, flew out of her chair, and called the cops. When they showed up, she claimed that I had assaulted her. And yes, my dad's remains were still sitting in the middle of the desk with the death certificate. The cops questioned me as to why I would do that. I told them the story. The supervisor boss called in, and they were all step away from the desk for a private talk. While they were talking, the cops came over to me. They said that I shouldn't take humans' remains out in public, but there were no laws, they were broken. I said that I agreed with them, that it was extreme, but she insisted to speak with him in person. By then, they were done talking between themselves. The supervisor's boss kissed up to me and got it taken care of. But the story isn't over yet. I had to call back a few days later to get utilities back to the house in my name. When the person on the phone saw the address and my name, I was immediately put on hold. The supervisor's boss that finally helped me got on the phone. She sucked up to me and waived all the fees that comes with the setting up the utilities. Just as the calling was ending, she informed me that she was again so sorry for the employee's lack of compassion. She said that the employee was terminated, and again, she's so very sorry. TLDR, ignorant employee asked to speak to the dead dad. Had a meeting in person, brought his ashes, and got her fired. I'm sure that this was all kind of a setup and it was all in their script of dragging out the process and making it as difficult and traumatic as possible to get at least another month of billing. But she was too stupid to call the cops and falsely accuse OP of assault. On to the fourth story shared by you/Stuff, Things, and Stuff. Security made us show the last 5 photos on our phone. My coworker, an absolute hero, maliciously complied at the security on one of our subcontractor jobs. The customer was a manufacturer for high-end electronic components. Security was tight as a small 4x6 box could contain 250,000 worth of microchips. Our team was installing equipment in their facility for 1 week. A security checkpoint had to be passed every trip in or out of the building. Mr. Security Guard, Chad maybe, decided my coworker, Steve probably, was more suspicious than the other 4 techs. So every trip in or out, not only does Steve made to dump his entire contents of his backpack out on the table and even gone through it, Chad required Steve to show him the last 5 pictures taken on his phone to prove he wasn't stealing secrets. This is all fine except that Chad lets everyone else through without any sorts of an inspection. Steve is trying to stay positive, but obviously this is eating away at him. Steve tried to be overly positive and also a bit snarky with comments like, "Thank you, Paul Bart, for keeping America safe," which buzz up the rest of our crew. Then, Steve has the idea that will free him the rest of the week. Wednesday come along, and Steve is overly scrutinized on our way in as usual. As we head to the security at lunch, Steve says he has to go to the bathroom. He comes back a few minutes later, absolutely giddy. Chad Blart, mall cop, stops us on the way out and asks Steve to see his camera roll. Steve gladly hands a phone over. Chad is greeted by some very peculiarly angled shots of Steve's butthole. What the F? Chad throws the phone down on the table. "Oh, sorry. I thought I had hemorrhoid and wanted to see how bad it was. Is everything okay with my pictures? Is the facility safe?" Chad never checks Steve's materials again. Good on you, Steve. And that, kids, is how Steve hacked the security and got the secrets out. Well played. On to the fifth story shared by u/NSN242. What do you mean I can't drive my car? I've been a mechanic my entire working life so far, and this is one of my favorite experiences. I had a customer come in complaining about a vibration. I put the vehicle on the lift and checked on the front end. I found a nearly broken tie rod and a faulty rack and pinion. So basically, the passenger side front wheel was not fully secured to the steering system and would soon break and cause the wheel to be completely disconnected from the steering. I told the customer how much the repair would be and told her it was unsafe to drive. She asked me to put it back together so she could leave. I told her that I could not do that because if it was broke after I let her leave, I could be held liable. She started yelling and screaming about calling the cops and suing me and her cousin's brother know a guy who's related to the chief of police and I'll be arrested. She calls the police and they come out and I show the officers the vehicle and they understood that the safety concern. They told me to just put the car down and let her leave. I did and even made her sign a statement declining crucial safety repairs. She left with the most "haha, I told you so" smug grin on her face. Until she left the property, got pulled over, and her car impounded. They also gave her a ticket for reckless driving. I was so happy seeing her car got towed. FYI, the cops told her it was against the law to drive it. The state laws back then allowed me to do exactly what I did, and I offered discount the price of the repair and take payments, and she still refused. And I don't care how well versed you think you're in the law, you don't know when or where this took place. And no, I won't tell you what state I'm in because I've already had several people message me saying they're going to try and find my shop just to harass and blast me. Calling the cops backfired big time for her. Justice is served. On to the final story shared by u/Arayvend. I'm sorry, ma'am. Of course your son can try the 7MSHU hot sauce. I work in a hot sauce store in a busy outlet mall. We're a well-likely locally owned business and have many loyal return customers, but at this particular location, we also get a lot of tourists who are curious about our challenge items, the Hot Ones products. We have a large variety of samples available every day, literally like 100 hot sauces, over 50 barbecues wing sauces just out on the table, and we can pull another 50 plus bottles or so from the fridge if once is open. Every so often, we get people who come into the store and ask to try the hottest sauce. They love Japalinos in their burritos and have eaten habanero straight, and they are ready to enter the ring, swallow some sauce, and gain the admiration of couple friends and bystanders at the cost of a stomach ache. We usually try to guide them the 10th hottest sauce in the store, burn them within, and move on to something mild and medium suited to their taste. Today, while I was selling items to people who were actually paying for things, a 10 or so years old boy enters the store. I always get worried when the children enter the store alone because it is full glass of bottles. They usually dart straight for the shelves and pick something up, but this child came barreling towards me like a bullet. While I make change for the couple buying some sauce, he calls me out like, "Excuse me," in a horrendous whiny pitch. I ignore the rude interruption and continue my conversation with my customers. He parrots it again, 12 times or so, back to back, as I thank these people and get them out of the store. Finally, I turn to him. "How can I help you? Where the duck are these kids' parents?" "Hi, can I try the hottest sauce in the store?" "Oh, not this crap again. I'm not dealing with this. Not with a 10 years old kid." I explained to him that the hottest sauce on the table is Hellboy Right Hand of the Doom. It's spiked with a 6.66 million Scoville extract, and honestly, if you're not experienced with this kind of stuff, more than just a tiny bit can really mess up a good part of your day. Take my word for it. I explained to him he has to be 19 years old to try and sign a waiver, which is BS lol, but I'm off in 30 minutes, so screw this kid. And instead, guide him to tasty fermented habanero that he cuffs his eyes on before explaining to me that he could handle the right hand of doom because his dad eats spicy peppers with him all the time. Okay, I say. He leaves, thank God. 15 minutes later, I'm interrupted by another customer. This time, a gigantic woman in a blue blouse. She sat next to my sample table like a giant blueberry, blocking up 20% of my floor space. Excuse me? Apple doesn't fall for. The customers I'm with are polite and excuse me to speak to her. You didn't let my son try the sauce. I explained to her that it has extract. It is 100 several times hotter than anything he has ever eaten, and that it can cause him severe discomfort, and that I will not let him try it in my store. I explained that she is free to purchase the sauce and have him try it at home if she so wishes. She explains to me that she's married to a Mexican man and that I wouldn't believe the things we ate in the New Mexico City where he grew up. When I asked what they had eaten, there she told me, "Things are hotter than anything we have in the store." At this point, her daughter interrupts our conversation. I kid you not. Excuse me? What? I'm getting annoyed. I was annoyed from the second I saw the kid, and now he's back 20 minutes later with 3 of him. Why do you sell Valentina? It's not even a hot sauce. Jesus Christ! Aren't you from Mexico? It says Ducking Salsa Picante on the goddamn bottle. It's 5:50. I'm off at 6. I've had enough. How about this? You can try the sauce, and if it's as mild as you think, I'll let him try it. She agreed and grabbed her sample stick. I reached for the right hand of doom and unscrewed the cap. Its clear aroma sending memories aches to my stomach. As she goes deep the stick into the sauce, I warn her, only take a small amount. She grins at me and dips the stick all the way into the sauce. Trap card, tramp. She slaps into her mouth. Immediately, she looks uneasy before she throws herself into pure agony. She's coughing, swinging her head back and forth, trying to desperately to speak, but she cannot muster any words. She dropped her sample stick in all the chaos. After a solid few minutes of coughing and dry heaving, she manages to say a single word, water. I explained to her that water won't help her now. My relief walks through the door just in time to witness the finish. She tells me that the only reason she's coughing is because it went down the wrong pipe. She then immediately vomits into our garbage can. She apologized for spitting up, like she didn't just rocket launch half of a liter of chum into my trash can and then leaves without saying anything else. I tossed out the trash with a smile on my face and clocked out. That is beautiful, precisely the way to handle this kind of entitled parent. It's unfortunate that her poor kids will likely acquire her destructive attitudes, but I'm glad OP didn't make one of them suffer unnecessarily because of their poor upbringings. Lesson learned, always listen to the hot sauce expert even if you're Mexican. That's it for today, fellow humans. Thanks for watching. Dang Doggo appreciates your time. If you enjoy the content and want to see more of us, stay tuned and subscribe. Don't forget to smash that like button and ring the bell, or Doggo will cry. Also, you can always tell us your friendly neighbor Doggo your experiences in the comment section. I will catch up with you guys later in the next video.